Dr. Cole, I invite you to make remarks at this time.
I begin by greeting the extraordinary brother president, Les Wang. And then I want to turn to greet the chair of the board, the brother chair of the Board of Trustees of Northern Michigan University, Brian Clogged. I, of course, reach all the way over there to my colleagues of the faculty and the staff. I know that among the many in this very special place today, there are alumni. There are some students, perhaps, who have finished their exams, have yet to take off for the break, and decided to join us. Surely among us are friends of this special university. You can count on it. Parents, family of the graduates are here in large numbers. And here in front of me, my classmates, the mighty class of 2011. In case I have missed greeting anyone, let me simply say, sisters and brothers all, good morning. And in fact, this is what you might say in the particular religious tradition in which I grew up. You would say this is a great getting up morning. It is that kind of a morning because we're here in a celebratory mood. We're here to lift up the accomplishments of each of these Northern Michigan University students. And we're here to wish each of you, to wish you well as you commence the next leg of your journey. To you then, dear graduates, let me say, congratulations, felicidades, mabruk, mazel tov, and you done good. I know, and you know, that you didn't get here all by yourselves. Indeed, you would not have made it to this day if you had not had the support of your parents, your grandparents, your aunts, your uncles, your partners, your spouses, your children, all of those folks who have deeply believed in you, especially during those times when you weren't sure you believed in yourselves. And I hope that today you are grateful for the way that, at least in the case of a lot of you, your folks have been your human ATM. I trust that you will continue to appreciate this sterling faculty at Northern, the women and men who have been your partners in the precious and powerful process of teaching and learning. And may you always appreciate Northern staff, those women and men who provided all of the support services that allowed you to grab a hold of and fully embrace a quality university education. Please know, this is really quite an honor and a joy for me to share this great celebration with you. And in receiving an honorary degree from Northern Michigan University, I am especially pleased to do it in the middle of winter on a day when it isn't snowing. I want you to know that all that I have read about President Wong leads me to respect and admire him greatly. But I had an experience this morning that I had not anticipated. I heard President Wong give an address to the honor students and their parents. And I'm simply prepared to say that in all of my years in the academy, I have rarely heard a talk of such courage and of such significance. You all better thank the good Lord that she brought you President Wong. I have known the brother chair of this board for many, many years, and I can testify that I know of few individuals, women or men, who are of such service. Brian understands what Dr. Martin Luther King meant when he said, life's most persistent question is, what are you doing for others? I bring you greetings from the Smithsonian National Museum of African Art, located in the capital of the United States of America. It's a special place. It's a special place where we collect, conserve, exhibit, and educate about the diverse and dynamic traditional and contemporary visual arts of Africa. Yes? Africa, the only place that is the cradle of all of humanity. What an important and moving fact it is that there is but one place from which all of humanity, all of humankind has descended. And how true and significant and amazing and full of grace it is that there is only one human race. Now, my dear classmates, know that I gave a lot of thought to choosing the topic on which I should center this commencement address. The problem is there's no shortage of topics about issues of critical importance in our communities, our nation, and our world. To name just a few: poverty. Yes, poverty. War, raging at this very moment in many parts of our world. And thus the crying need for peace. Assaults on our environment that threaten our very planet. The state of education in our country, especially what is taking place in some of our K through 12 public schools. The troubling state of the American economy, indeed economies around the world. There are the complex issues around immigration. And yes, I could have chosen to speak about technology, about the power of it, the importance of the way that it now serves us, and yes, if we are not careful, ways in which it can be of disservice to humanity. Well, you'll have to keep inviting me back to Northern to talk on each of those topics, because I settle on something that is clearly of critical importance all over this great country of ours, and in fact throughout the world. I've chosen to focus for just a few moments on the critical need for each of us to do whatever we can to address bigotry and discrimination wherever we find it. In our own homes, in our schools, in our churches, synagogues, mosques, temples, in places where we go to have recreation, in our workplaces, indeed in world places. Now, I thought the brother chair, Brian Claw, would speak about diversity and inclusion. But that's all right. Because you know, when it comes to issues of education and increasing our understanding, repetition is good for the soul. I want to begin by drawing on words of the great African-American scholar and activist, Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois. He said that the problem of the 20th century is the problem of the color line. Here we are in the 21st century, and we have yet to eradicate the problem of the color line. And there's so many more lines we human beings have constructed to divide us. Lines based on gender, class, religion, nationality, sexual orientation, age, physical and mental abilities and disabilities. And because these various forms of bigotry and discrimination are so widespread, so tenacious, many are led to believe that, don't worry, it's just human nature. That's just the way people are, you know, to really like their own and to dislike people who are different from them. Well, I am here as an anthropologist. I am here as a member of the human race to declare that bigotry is not carried on the chromosomes. Bigotry is learned. And because it is learned, it can be unlearned. And I've got the best idea of all. We can just stop teaching it. Now, I'm not naive enough to think that we can get rid of bigotry by declaring a moratorium on teaching it. How well I know that bigotry and discrimination are about power and privilege. And it's not easy for folk who have power and privilege to decide one day, oh, well, I'll just give it up. We have to offer to those who have it a more rewarding alternative. We need to imagine and work toward making real a world in which difference doesn't make any more difference. We need to envision and then create communities where everyone is respected and invited to the table. And all right, if the table isn't big enough, then build another table. Here in my country, power and privilege based on race and gender stand out. And so as an African American woman, I know what it is like not to have white skin privilege and not to have male privilege. But hear me, my fellow graduates. It is ever so important that I acknowledge and deal with the reality that there is some power and privilege that I do have. I clearly have some power and privilege as someone who is of the middle, and you might even say upper middle class. Someone who is a heterosexual, someone who is a Christian, someone who is physically able. Although my friends in the disability community tell me, just wait. You think you're fully able? Hold time. This reality that each of us has some form of power and privilege flows from the fact that each of us has multiple identities. And it's ever so important for us to be aware of those identities and to guard against efforts to characterize us in singular terms. Let me share another reality about this stuff that we call bigotry and discrimination. It is this. It's an unfortunate fact. Being the victim of one form of bigotry or discrimination does not immune one from victimizing others. For example, some white women who have been the victims of sexism can practice racism. Some black people who have known the bitter sting of racism can be homophobic and practice heterosexism. Some people who are Jewish and have been the victims of anti-Semitism can harbor feelings and carry out actions that stem from Islamophobia. And so, my sisters and brothers of this mighty class, based on what I have just said, what do I ask of you? What do I ask of you is you go out into the world of graduate and professional studies, or the world of work. And yes, I must be honest and say, as you go out looking for work, there are some and very few specific things I want to ask of you. But know that I will ask nothing of you that I do not ask of myself. First, I ask that you seriously think about how you learned your prejudices. That is, interrogate yourself. Ask, when did I start to have those ideas? And then contribute to the world by refusing to hold on to those ideas. And you know what? If you are fortunate to be parents, if you choose to be, one of the most startling contributions you will make to the world is to refuse to teach bigotry to your children. If you're off to do post-baccalaureate work, then I encourage that at your new institution, as I hope you did here at Northern, that you will be on that group, that you will be among that group, rather, that you will make sure that you are always speaking up whenever you hear a racist, a sexist, a heterosexist joke. Suppose each of us took time to truly understand how it feels to hear that. I ask that each of you would get in touch with your multiple identities. And once you do, do not allow anyone to ever call you in singular terms. And then, of course, I urge you to honestly examine your own power and privilege. Because when you do so, you open the door to not only understanding your power and privilege, but learning to use it in positive ways. Now, as I begin to move toward closure on this talk, I want to do so by leaving you with some inspiring words that come from the heads and the hearts of women and men of diverse communities. From a Native American people, the Sioux, we hear these words: with all beings and all things, we must be relatives. Here are words spoken by many different people to capture the value of gender equity. The words are women. I can say, we women hold up half the sky. I turn to a Chinese saying for the title of this commencement address. It is a saying that speaks to the beauty of human diversity. One flower never makes a spring. Whenever it comes, months from now, spring that is, to this northern part of Michigan, you and I know that should it come with only one flower, it would not be a spring. It must come with an incredible array of flowers of almost endless diversity. And even though each of us has heard these words countless times, I must lift up Dr. Martin Luther King's moving words that continue to speak to the struggle against racial discrimination. He said so simply and powerfully, I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Cesar Chavez, the exemplary Chicano leader, once said, our ambitions must be broad enough to include the aspirations and needs of others, for their sakes and our own. I want you to hear these words of the beloved Rabbi Hillel. He was once asked, Rabbi, can you stand on one foot and say everything that is in the Torah, the sacred book? He responded, yes, I can do that. And so, standing on one foot, this is what the rabbi said. He said, what is hateful to you, do not to your fellow men and women. That is the whole Torah. All the rest is commentary. There is a passage in the Quran that I try to remember often. In that holy book, it says this: we are made into nations and tribes that we may know and love each other. Now, one of my sheroes, Audre Lorde, who described herself as a black feminist, lesbian, mother, warrior, poet, offered these profound words. She said, "It is not our differences, it is our silence about our differences that harms us." And the last words I want to share are words from Helen Keller, an amazing social activist who was deaf and blind from the age of 10 months. She once said, "Each of us is blind and deaf until our eyes are opened to our fellow men and women, until our ears hear the voices of humanity." Now I really will bring closure, but I got to ask one more thing of my classmates. Would each of you please stand? And I need you to put your programs in your chairs. I'm going to ask each of you to do something. I'm going to ask you to take your right hands and move them across your body to your left arm, and I would say at a point somewhere between your shoulder and your elbow. Now I want you to take your left hand and move it across your body and find a place that'll make it sort of symmetrical. Now get a comfortable stance. You know what I'm going to ask you to do. I want you to hug yourself. And if you feel like you want to rock a little bit, that's all right too. I'm asking you, yes, to hug yourself in a spirit of congratulation. This is your day. But I'm also asking you to hug yourselves as a symbolic act that you love yourself. You can't love others in the full array of human diversity until you really have come to respect and love yourself. I'm really pleased to be in your class. Bye-bye.